Welcome to Behind the SME, the podcast where we dive into the stories of founders, leaders, and visionaries of small and medium-sized enterprises. As the CEO of a small business myself, I want to uncover what drives the success of SMEs by talking to those who are in the trenches, building their businesses from the ground up. I hope you enjoy the episode. Mike, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So, normally start by explaining how I know the guest, but this is one of those rare circumstances where we don't really know each other.
No, just really met.
We have just met through a previous guest, Alex Merry, who you know well, done a bit of work with.
Awesome guy.
And he put your name forward, and we analysed what that person brings to the party and said Mike would be a great guest.
The next hour will tell.
Yeah. But no, obviously, you've done some pretty cool things over the past 30 plus years, and I think have I given your age away there? 20 plus.
I'm trying to believe I'm 21 still.
Yeah, okay, fine. But yeah, I think a couple of really cool stories that will come through from what you've got to share, and actually a slightly different take from previous guests that we've had. So yeah, super excited about getting into it. But instead of me going through your plotted history, why don't you just give us a little bit of a whistle-stop tour on who you are, and then we'll get on to talking about the main business you work on now a bit later.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks for reminding me. It's 30 years back in my career. It's awesome.
My bad.
But if I go back to the beginning, I suppose I started as a consultant, which was an odd place to start, but I found it really, really interesting because I got to bounce around quite a lot of different businesses, learn different business models, see different things in action, and ended up at a place called ThoughtWorks, which is a really awesome big technology consultancy. Had great experiences there, working from startups all the way to investment banks. But the experience I found, in general, was quite frustrating because I'm quite creative. I like to build things, and it felt like it was a very sort of 2D experience. I wanted a bit more ownership of the things that I was doing. So from consultancy, I followed my friend and I went to join a startup. And there I had the kind of auspicious story of making 9 failed startups in about 12 months, which was quite an experience, but I learned a lot when it went into 3D. They weren't all failures. There was quite a few ones that worked quite well. Ended up building a business with a who's now a really good friend, which was online traffic arbitrage. Very long story, but basically we scaled it out to the entire world. We spent billions of pounds on a credit card, sending traffic to Google, made a load of money. But it wasn't really worth anything as a business because it was just a contract with somebody. So the guy who founded that business, a guy called Neil Hutchison, bought Uswitch, a price comparison website. So he picked it up for £5 million, which is a long story, and put myself and my friend Paul in there to help scale it. So I then spent the next 10 years applying all the things I learned from consultancy, from a data-driven business to help scale that business. Honestly, so many stories from ending up speaking at the kind of European Union about QR codes on bills and lots of other stuff along the way. But ultimately, we sold that business 3 times, exited to private equity, had a trade sale to Zoopla, and we got delisted for 2.2 billion. So quite a growth story from 5 million. But along the way, I had a mentor kind of really help me out fundamentally in my career. And he just kept reminding me, it doesn't count if you just scale one business. So it turns out scaling businesses are like skateboard tricks. It's like too to be true. So I was looking for the next business to scale, and that's where I ended up at loveholidays. So left Uswitch, joined there. It was the fastest growing business in the UK at the time until about 9 months later, then COVID hit. So selling holidays to no holidays.
Wow, I mean, so much to talk about. And we should say that your role at Uswitch and at loveholidays is Chief Technology Officer or Technical?
Should have mentioned that, yeah. CTO, yeah.
CTO.
But at loveholidays, I've also been responsible for the contact center for the last 2 or 3 years as well.
Okay.
Which is a strange mix.
Pretty normal thing for a CTO to absorb, isn't it?
Yeah. I've learned a lot from the guys there. It's been actually a massively learning experience, something that's really helped me in my technology job as well.
Let's just quickly, for those that maybe haven't got a CTO or never worked with a CTO, just explain a little bit about the role of a CTO for us.
So I look after really everything to do with technology, from kind of the Wi-Fi, the computers that people use, all the way through to conversion rate on the website and everything that's in between. So it's a job that goes across everything. But I describe myself really as somebody who like helps translate technology into an organization and translate an organization for technology. So it's more of my role is about helping businesses grow and scale really quickly, like through using technology effectively.
Yeah. Okay. Um, let's talk about Uswitch. You were in Vegas. Your boss at the time says to you, "We just bought a company called Uswitch for 5 million quid." Just to take us back to that moment. What happened? How did that come about? And yeah, what happened after that?
Oh, I mean, that's it's. I think, as I kind of mentioned in my introduction, we'd been making a lot of money on that kind of arbitrage thing. He was looking at where he could invest. He's a super, really interesting entrepreneurial guy. We worked on a lot of things together. He's an absolute genius. And he was thinking, what can you do with the money? And in the background, he met a guy called Paul Fisher who'd introduced him to Uswitch. So Uswitch has got a really interesting backstory. It was founded by the Queen's cousin, Lord Milford Haven, when the energy markets deregulators built this business that looked like it was going great guns, sold for almost the same price as Liverpool Football Club when it was sold back in the day, for around 300 million.
Wow.
But then a few years later, it just fallen off the cliff. So there's a whole story about why. But we picked it up when it was a business that was losing money, and they wanted to turn it around. So it was kind of presented at Vegas like, here we go, we've got this opportunity. I didn't really think much of it at the time, but when we came back, very quickly, my friend and I, Paul, went over there one day, parachuted into the business that was in Victoria, and just started fixing it. So I didn't really think much about it at the time because it wasn't I think I was too young and stupid to really understand the kind of the scale of the opportunity, and we just threw ourselves into it. And it was just for both of us and other people that joined us, like from Uswitch, who've been like foundational as well. It was just a massive foundational learning experience over 10 years that learned so much from.
So just remind us what Uswitch. I think everyone will be familiar with the name because it's such a household name. But actually, what did or does it do now?
It's a price comparison website, so it's similar to Money Supermarket, Compare the Market, those sort of things. So it's just an online platform. So they aggregate deals from the various different suppliers, and they present them back to customers, and you can find a deal on your energy, your broadband, your car insurance, any of those things, like really quickly. So it's that kind of business.
And how does it make money?
So for Uswitch, it's a kind of CPA model. So each customer you send to your partner, they'll pay you a small fee. And so what you're trying to do is buy traffic from Google at a certain price, convert it at a certain rate, and use that to drive up the volume to your suppliers. And the more volume you send, weirdly, the more money you make from each of those customers. You just then have to kind of make that virtuous circle work. So like paid search, SEO, conversion rate, product optimization, and then kind of commercial to just negotiate the rates with your suppliers.
Yeah, okay. And this is when SEO was kind of thriving, right, as a whole game, I suppose.
Yeah, SEO, paid search, those sorts of things were kind of bread and butter back in the day. So that's how we kind of scaled back when I was at like Traffic Broker doing the traffic arbitrage thing.
Yeah. So where do you start with a business like that? What do you do on the first day, week?
Oh, I think you take a big deep breath. We basically decamped into the boardroom, and we started just kind of looking at the code, just because it was from a very technical perspective, to try and understand how it worked. And what we found was as I said, we came from a business that had scaled globally by optimizing at the microdollar, like traffic between different search engines. So we were used to kind of having a lot of data at scale and making really data-driven decisions. But when we kind of turned up to Uswitch, they didn't really know how many bookings how many sales they made last month, let alone kind of like yesterday, how many they're making. So we wrote out a plan for Neil that we were going to basically rebuild the energy part of the business as a prototype. And so over the next 2 years, that's what we did. We kind of ripped all the old systems out. We put new systems in. We built the kind of data that allowed us to connect together the marketing with the conversion, with the sales. And that kind of efficiency that we built really kind of helped scale the business and kind of leapfrog it into, well, quite a different dimension.
So it was a technology problem as far as what maybe from your remit.
It was well, I think I say everything through a technology lens, but
Yeah.
it was a technology problem. It was a data problem, and to be honest, it was a cultural problem because we came in and they just basically gutted the business because trying to kind of save money to be able to make it scale. We were trying to like turn around this failing business, and so our first point of call was just like fixing the tech, getting the data business, getting the data right, so we could actually start cranking the handle and making some money out of it.
Yeah. And you said you were involved in that for 10 years and 3 exits. Just how does that happen?
Well, I suppose it happens like one day at a time. You don't realize what's happening in the background. But we were so focused on making a difference. It really didn't seem like 10 years at the time. Like even thinking back on it, I just can't believe it's been 10 years. But it's from that initial 2 years to kind of turn it around. We bought different businesses. You may have heard of like Motorway. So those guys, before they founded Motorway, actually created a business called Top 10. We bought that business. It was kind of mostly broadband and mobile phone sales. Integrated that into Uswitch. We kind of cleaned up all of the easy stuff, and then we started evolving from there. We did kind of a first in the industry where we created a data product where we were selling market data back to energy suppliers to help them hedge on the energy markets, which was like super interesting. We had a load of data that we then also took to the government to help them make their kind of decisions on how they kind of price people's energy bills and things like that. So it was 10 years of just constant optimization, focused on how we can innovate, how we can keep pushing the business forward. And then in the background, I suppose there was the financial results came off the back of it. We were lucky enough to then be sold to private equity. So a company called LDC bought us. Made some really great friends from there, like really helpful. They introduced me to my future mentor, actually, which was really helpful. Spent a few years under private equity. That went really, really well. They kind of keep away from you if you're doing a good job. And then we were sold to Zoopla. So they were Alex Chesterman founded Zoopla, Kazoo, all those sorts of things. He was interested in Uswitch, bought it, which became, well, unfortunately for us, like it was almost like the deal of the decade. They described it, so they got it at such a great price. But that was a really, really interesting kind of part of the time as well, because we had 2 technology businesses that people thought would easily fit together, but you had like 2 actually quite discrete cultures. One very much a technology business, and one which a business built on acquisition and a very commercial lens. Like fitting those businesses together, learned a huge amount from that. Learned how to work under a PLC, and then after a few years from that, got delisted. So a company called Red Ventures and Silver Lake, another private equity company, kind of clubbed together to buy it. They paid 2.2 billion for it. And
Just explain what delisted means.
They basically just bought it, took it off the stock exchange.
Okay.
So it was theirs. It became their business, and they were optimizing that for their own ends. Again, another interesting story. The CEO of Red Ventures was actually on a plane that crashed into the Hudson, and he gave a TED talk on that. So honestly, I really kind of met some really great people. Like learned a lot. But ultimately, that was the kind of that was where it was the end of the journey for me after about a year after the acquisition, and then joined Love Holidays.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about Love Holidays. I recommend anybody that is thinking about a holiday, unless you're serious about it. You know, I was having a play around over the weekend, and you kind of get lured in. You're like, hey, Crete looks nice.
So a lot of choice. Yeah.
It's very bold branding. It's very in your face, and it's very smooth. You know, the whole experience is really slick.
Yeah, it's super fast.
Yeah, and yeah, it's worth the look. You know, tell us a little bit about firstly what Love Holidays do, and then what you've been doing there.
Yeah, so it's a very similar sort of business type to Uswitch. It's a 2-sided platform. You're just connecting together suppliers and customers, but in this case, it's different holiday, like people who have access to parts of a holiday, be that flights, hotels, ancillaries. We package all those things up. We provide that to customers. not only the ability to search, but the ability to pay. We give them kind of, what do you call it, discounts on their holidays, payment plans, those sorts of things. And we just give them access to like what is essentially, well, each day we process 7 trillion different packages, which is like a mind-boggling number. And actually, we did a little bit of a calculation last year. If you sum up all of the packages that we processed, it ended up being 1.7 quadrillion, which is one of my favorite stats, is that we've processed more packages a year than there are grains of sand on all the beaches of the world, which is my friend told me, which is kind of cool. So we're at that sort of scale in terms of like finding holidays. We do that because we want to make it a really fast experience. Our website is actually faster than Google's on 2 or 3 of their own metrics, which is we're kind of proud of. It's something that we've been really working on since being there 6 years ago. It's a really cool business.
Yeah, and I think I'm right saying fastest growing business in the UK.
Always is, but yeah, we're growing really well. It was when we started, and we've continued great guns. But obviously, COVID was a bit of a difficult time. But if you look at us against the kind of competition, I actually put a visualization on LinkedIn recently. We're absolutely smashing it, and if we continue growing at the rate we did last year, this year we'll be bigger than TUI next year.
Wow,
which is kind of cool.
And yet you don't own any planes. You haven't got any.
No assets. No hotels.
Yeah. So, who's in charge of the delivery of these holidays?
So we have relationships with each of our partners, whether that's the flight themselves or the kind of hotels or the intermediaries that we work with. So we're then responsible for the fulfilling of that.
Right.
We have a large contact center that, again, I'm responsible for, 1,000+ people around the world that help people with their holidays. We make sure that they not only get to their holidays, they have a good time. So we're responsible for fulfillment, but through those kind of intermediaries.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm just picking up the differences between the first business, traffic something.
Traffic broker was the first one.
Yeah, and then Uswitch, and it sounds like those are small margin on traffic, whereas Love Holidays, you own more of the service and the delivery, therefore a larger margin, but you're not putting the flight on, so you've expanded what you're doing, but it's still the same premise that it's about a very good online experience leading to the delivery of a product.
I suppose it's a higher cost product, which meant there's a higher margin,
Yeah.
but we're also in charge of like how much margin we put on each of those holidays as well. So we get it at a cost, which again, similar to Uswitch. The more volume you send, the cheaper you get each of those kind of individual prices for. So we can then price at a certain level that allows us to compete in the market. So we do thousands of pricing operations a second to be able to make sure that we're competitive in the market, which benchmark ourselves against our competition. So we want to be cheap enough. So it's a large purchase for people. It could be in the tens of thousands at the extreme end, but the average holiday is £1,000 to £2,000. So you're making a bit of margin on that.
Yeah. I saw a picture of you delivering a presentation. I think I'll get the wording wrong, but I think the wording said, we're a tech company that happens to do holidays.
It's a
right?
technology company that just happens to be in travel.
There you go. Fine. What does that mean?
So that's a story when it started at Love Holidays. It was founder led. Some again really smart people who work with. They decided to leave the business, which was one of the reasons why I was brought in. And very quickly after that, a new CEO joined, a guy called Donna Retief that I've learned a phenomenal amount from in the last 6 years. We kind of seen things like eye to eye as soon as he started. And what he said to me almost straight away was like, Mike, we need to stop thinking about ourselves as a travel company and instead think about ourselves as a technology company that happened to be in travel. Like he really understood that the way they were going to scale this business was actually getting the technology right. So for me, that really meant changing the operating model to better be able to exploit technology in the business, to change the culture within the technology team, to about how they think about technology, and to start valuing technology as a first class citizen and reporting and getting the data about it as well.
Yeah. I think I also saw you were on the train on the way to work. Do you want to tell the story or shall I?
You can if you like.
And you're from what I can tell, like you were peeping at someone's phone. that's the way it
Yeah,
reads. You're peeping at someone's phone that was
that's
on.
not how I would say it. But yeah, fair enough.
You saw that someone was on the Love
Yeah.
Holiday website.
Yeah.
It was slow to load,
Yeah.
and they gave up and went back to scrolling the internet and watching reels or some mind-numbing stuff. And that was quite early on, and from what I've read, it sounds like that really informed a large part of your thinking early on.
Yeah, definitely. I think coming from a business where we'd been invested in technology and innovation for 10 years, I suppose it was quite a shock when you start again, right? Like startups, you don't really invest in technology early on. It's all about cutting corners. You get there, and they've honestly done an amazing job of figuring out how to build a business, and a business that was profitable. So if you look at the kind of margins, making the growth, right, from a business perspective, it was going great guns. But from my perspective as a kind of technologist and a person who cared about the product, it wasn't as good. And I think that just put it into kind of perspective almost in the first week, where you're like, oh, somebody's looking at our website. Oh no, they're not anymore. They've gone somewhere else. It's that slow. And even in the first year, the technology wasn't keeping up with the business demand. I remember the kind of VP of engineering now just messaging me saying, "Oh, what's happening?" And it was like every night we were up till about 8:30. But as people came in to look for holidays, the website would go down, and it was down for about like 2 hours. So not only was it really slow, it was actually really flaky, and it was losing us like literally millions of pounds in like holiday sales a year. So getting that technology up and those foundations in, it was like actually COVID gave us a bit of help, because that was a few months later.
Breathing space.
And that's perhaps the kind of the connection between Love Holidays and Uswitch is we got about 2 years to be able to invest in the technology to get it better. So that, again, like awesome CEO just basically said, just go and fix it. So I'll get the business sorted. Well, I'll make sure we'll continue as a business. You go and fix the technology. And so the team that we kind of brought together for those 2 years ripped it apart, put it back together again, and we came out of COVID so much faster, so much better, and you can just see it from the growth of the business compared to the competition.
Yeah, you said before that there's been a couple of really unique world firsts that you've done with the website.
Yeah,
give us an example of something that's pretty wacky.
I mean, some of these are quite technical. We do a lot of A/B testing, and one of the world firsts we did is we tested content on the edge, which is a very long story, but it's like something nobody had done before, because you always have to balance between the speed of your website and actually testing, because it'll have to come through to your own systems. But we found a way of A/B testing on like CDNs, which are the content delivery networks, but that's a very long technical story. But we did other things in our contact center with our chatbot Sandy that have been really awesome as well. So one of the things we did during COVID was invest in building a chatbot, because we had to refund so much. So we went from a selling holiday business to a holiday refund business, and we were literally underwater. We got more, I think we had 10 times more calls in a month than we did for the entire year previously for refunds during COVID. Wow. So we were literally underwater. So my friend Eugene and Tom really invested in trying to figure this problem out with chatbots, built what became known as Sandy to kind of help people refund. And from there, we've, again, just continued to innovate and grow and scale that capability. And so Sandy can now respond. Well, it's a natural conversation. It's not like a press 1 for this or a press 2 for that. You have a conversation with a chatbot, or now we can have a voice conversation, so you can ring us up and speak to it. And from that, we automate about 60% of all text conversations and about 25% of all chats that come through. So that has been recognized from Google as kind of innovative. And earlier this year, I got the opportunity to go to Vegas, where they presented at their kind of Cloud Next events. And it was like 45,000 people, and Love Holidays, this kind of company from Hammersmith, was presented front and center there, which is kind of cool.
Amazing. What an amazing moment. I want to talk a little bit about what it might feel like to be a member of your team. I'm going to butcher the quote again, so forgive me. It's a common thing that I do. You said something along the lines of, growth won't come from centralized control, but in effective distribution of responsibility to experts in the business.
Yep.
What does that mean?
I suppose what I've seen as I scaled the business is that you have to do more things in parallel. We've got now 14 different technology teams working on various different things. There's no way that you can centrally coordinate that kind of work. You have to create an organization and a system that gives people the autonomy and some way the accountability to work on those problems. And so it's not, we look to minimize that kind of central control. We want to know as the CEO says, we all want to be rowing in the same direction. We want the same North Star, but we want to also kind of devolve how we're going to get there to each of the people in the teams. So what that's meant is we've created a business where instead of being kind of arranged around projects, and so you move between like various different things over time, we've given people like ownership of a part of the business. So you get to own, say, well, in Eugene's case, the experience of the contact center and how we use technology there. But that can be from the checkout experience or how we price. You own those parts of the business, and you can think about how to innovate and grow those. And we've had so much value that you can do in parallel, and so much innovation across those. So to take the excuse me, the packaging part of the business, my friend George, he used to work at a trading firm in Chicago called DRW. So he's got like this experience of high frequency, high volume systems. And he was able to, whilst Eugene was writing a chatbot, rebuild our kind of packaging systems with a guy called Mate at work, where apply all that knowledge, where we can scale to those like ridiculous numbers, and we can respond to kind of customers in 100 milliseconds latency. So he's been able to put all of that knowledge that he has into those systems and innovate in that way. So we kind of have to balance between some of these kind of bigger strategic deliveries, which may deliver value in the medium term, but also improve like localized innovation within those teams and those problems.
Yeah. Okay. Makes loads of sense. When you explain it like that, you go, okay, yeah, I need to completely restructure my whole business. But how, like your CEO, you know, he said what I think any typical CEO would say in response to that structure. We all need to make sure we're all going in the same direction. Otherwise, you know, 14 different teams centered around different problems, technological crossover. Like you can imagine just the kind of the way things might butt up against each other.
Yep.
How do you mitigate for that, or do you just say that's just going to be part of it? But you know, we need to kind of break stuff and move quickly.
Well, you think you have to. People have very either high resolution or low resolution views of the world, right? So it's like when you drive a car, you think you know how a car works until it breaks, and then you lift up the bonnet, and now in my car there's a big plastic thing over the top of it, and I've got no idea what to even do, to even how to make it work. And it's similar to a business where you know where you want it to go, and you want to know how to get there, but the complexities you're going to have to manage, you can't understand all of those bits at the same time. So regardless how you think about it, you're gonna be making a trade-off between the direction you want to go and how you're going to be optimizing those systems. What we're just making clear is that we value like both of those activities at the same time. We value the kind of strategic direction, but also the continued optimization of those systems. And that's honestly what's given us the kind of flexibility to be able to scale the business, to turn it around from a website that fell over at 8 o'clock at night, and we had to spend 2 hours like bringing it back online, to one that we've had like 4 nines of availability. So it's like seconds of availability, like seconds of downtime over a year. So it's changed at night and day. So it's depending on how you understand the business and how much technology is like embedded in your business, you're gonna have to make that trade-off at some point. We just made it explicit.
Yeah. Yeah. So where do OKRs or KPIs, whichever expression you want to use, where do they come into this picture?
So the way we've got both, right? So KPIs, which would be your key performance indicators, but we use those as ways of measuring each of those parts of the systems. So you can, because it's a part of a system that one thing passes on to the next. So our supply passes on to our packaging, which passes on to the website. There's KPIs and handoffs between those systems. So you can have SLOs, SLAs. So there's like service levels between those, with the KPIs that are core to that part of the business. So in our case, it would be like things like pricing accuracy. So how accurate was our pricing, or like the conversion rate, various different, but over the top of, so that's how we maintain the system operationally. The way that we change it strategically then is through OKRs.
Right.
So that ambition that we're setting, the kind of North Star that we're moving to as a business, we would describe that through OKRs. So it's the objective that we have, and then the measures that would show that we're moving towards that direction. And they could be like some of those KPIs, but they're just like the way that we know if we're heading in the right way.
Okay, fine. Okay, I think I'm with you. So how can you give us an example of a typical OKR?
So we're currently working on a few at the moment. So we've split the business into, at the moment, it's a selling part of the organization and a managing part of the organization. And so what our objective is in the managing part of the organization, we want to treat everybody's holiday as if it was our own. So to be able to do that, we're leveling up our experience from what we're doing on the website to what we're doing in our kind of contact center. So we find measures that are appropriate at that level to state and to understand if we're moving in that direction. So that would be like things like, well, our NPS score as an example,
Yep.
which it's a bit of a laggy indicator, but that would give you some indication of where we're going, what we're going to do. We want to be able to do that, provide the CSAT in the customer service space. But for something like the website, we'd be looking at customer effort score, which would be how many channels do you have to go through to get your need met? Those sorts. So we'd outline those kind of broad kind of ideas of the impacts that we're trying to have, and we'd describe that intent to the teams, and they'd then be able to kind of figure out how they could change their part of the system better to be able to meet those needs.
Yeah, okay. I think I'm with you. So the strategic direction is, or the kind of the saying is, treat it like it's our own. That's kind of one of our desires is in priorities is service.
Yep.
And service level excellence. Let's look at the really important metrics that indicate that we're moving in that direction.
Yep.
Where are we now? Where do we need to be? And then track towards that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and are those figures and what good looks like? Are they coming from the board, or is that decentralized as well?
That's our recommendation, like to the board. So in this case, we've outlined a strategy. We're actually going through a bit of work at the moment with McKinsey to set up our 2030 vision. So from that, we'd have an idea of what we're trying to do as a business for the next 5 years. Which actually 2030 in 5 years is always a shock to me whenever I think about it.
Yeah.
And then we take that, we then have a year-long strategy, and we break that down into the metrics that we want to hit, and they can be both like customer-led, but also financial, and we then patch those into kind of OKRs we pass into the teams.
Okay, yeah, that makes good sense. And those you spoke about before, the North Star, the OKRs, kind of the guidelines for reaching the North Star, so that your 14 technological sub-teams know that they need to be operating in support of those figures and ambitions.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a hierarchy of those teams as well. So it's not just like a platform and then 14 teams. We've grouped those teams into like broader abstractions. So we've got a platform that's broken into like how we sell holidays, how we manage holidays, and how do we supply. And then with each of those parts, we've broken that into like various. So in the post-booking part of it, it's how do we manage our booking data? How do we interact with our contact center? What's the online experience? So on and so forth. There's teams that are kind of underneath that, and each level would be a set of objectives that we're managing to.
Yeah. Okay, that's really useful. Actually, I think my experience with KPIs, targets, and alike, I've been through a whole journey of different ways of setting them. So it's just great to hear someone else's approach, I suppose.
Yeah, I think I need a whiteboard to explain it properly.
Yeah. No, I think we've got a pretty good steer. I want to move on to talking about. You've spoken about the organizational structure, the setup, sub teams centered around problems, not projects. I think a really interesting take. And I keep quoting you, but it's useful. Here's a good one. The future belongs to those who are irreplaceably themselves, not those who are competently generic.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean it's a great one-liner. What do you mean by it?
Well, I think AI is changing a lot of things at the moment. At Love Holidays, we've been integrating AI into our business for so many different years, so many years in a row. like when it was machine learning before it became Gen AI. But this latest kind of shift, you can really see how it's not changing what it means to an organization, what it means to jobs, how you turn up at work. And so what I've seen it do is raise the bar for what's good enough to be much higher than it ever has been before. So the documents that you can write, the presentations that you can give, the stories that you can tell, the numbers that you can kind of quote, you can get there really, really quickly. What really is important is the things you're placing on top of that, like your own experience, the background, what brought you here, like your opinion of that. So you don't need the kind of generic stuff anymore. Like if all you're doing is just getting to good enough, I don't think that's enough. You need to be using your experience. You need to be using your unique perspective about on what AI is producing to be able to actually be valuable going forward.
Yeah, you quoted a one-liner in your employee engagement, which is one of the highest scoring parts of it, which is I can be myself at work.
Yep.
I assume meaning people can express themselves. They can turn up, they can have an impact. They feel like what they're doing is purposeful, but equally they can be creative and alike.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter what background you come from, like how you turn up. We're all just focused on the outcomes of work, and you feel like you can fit in regardless of like who you are. And honestly, that was one of the things that's been driving me for my career. I don't come from like the normal path to this. I got quite a working class background. I fell into this job quite differently, but I'd want to be able to feel like even though you've had maybe quite a unique experience, that you can actually still apply that and there's some value to those things.
Yeah, and just putting personality into something is just so important, isn't it? Like,
100%.
And you can see an article that's been written by a piece of code, can't you?
100%. Oh, no, it's becoming increasingly obvious. I remember, I think one of the things I wrote about was I watched the Aliens film again recently. And when you watch Aliens, if you go back and watch it, when they're on a kind of the cargo bay of the ship, behind them is a painting.
Yeah.
Like I didn't notice that when I was growing up. Like I thought they were actually on a spaceship. But through like years of like watching maybe like 10 or quite a lot more sci-fi things, you kind of get more appreciation of what the kind of graphics look like. But we're exposed, like in a similar way, we're exposed to this kind of auto-generated content like so much now. Like every day we're seeing more and more of it. And it's getting so obvious to see the kind of the triggers of those things.
Yeah.
And it's quite a few combination of those things together, like the types of words you use, the grammar, all of those things. It's so obvious.
And yours is obviously not, because there's a subheading in one of your articles that says "weaponize your weirdness," and you just know that's not coming from an LLM. That's you. What does that mean?
It's just very similar to what we were talking about. It kind of a unique perspective that you kind of bring to something. That's like it's. I had a quote or an aphorism ages ago, which is like, "What makes you weird as a kid and make you successful as an adult, but if you don't lose it." And that's honestly really stuck with me. And it was just that kind of concept I was trying to get it down into a heading.
Yeah. So what made you weird as a kid?
Well, a lot of things, but I think the things I could talk about on here was maybe the kind of range of experience that I was interested in. I was interested in so many different things. I played the drums, played a lot of basketball, like music, like psychology, whatever. I had a range of experience, what I thought was just like fragmented attention. It was actually just intellectual curiosity. And instead of leaning into that, I did something which I shouldn't have done, was just like focus on something that was I kind of conformed, and I ended up doing a degree that I shouldn't have really done, and I wasn't really that interested in. And it took me a while to kind of unpick all that and get back to all of the things I am actually interested in.
So if you see your team conforming, becoming a little bit generic, and maybe some of the stuff they're coming out with, ideas, or I don't know, something that just feels a bit uniform, what do you do as their leader? How do you unwind some of that?
Weirdly, the conversations I've been having recently with the people I work with is the exact opposite. which is
This is too weird.
which is we've hired so many people with like really interesting background. I mean, I could go into them. My friend George actually just went on tour around America for 3 weeks. So he was in a dungeon synth band, which is an offshoot of death metal, which you listen to whilst you're playing Dungeons and Dragons, like crazy things. So like we've got people who have got like really interesting backgrounds who do really interesting things. Same as my friend like Eugene who built the stuff with Sandy. They're people who are massively intelligent. They're hugely creative. But as we're growing as an organization, it's how do you basically not constrain that creativity, but be able to articulate in such a way that fits it in as a business is scaling.
Yeah.
So you can't just have crazy creative. Well, you can, but it depends on where you want to fit in the organization. You need to be able to. You actually now need to be able to turn up and articulate things in a numbers driven way. You need to be able to like provide some structure to your thinking, to your weirdness. So we've got a lot of. Especially the people I work with on a regular basis, there's a lot of creativity, which we're just trying to kind of figure out how to then like integrate into a business.
So if someone came up to you and said, "I've got this idea," and it was wacky, but they linked it to an OKR that was a meaningful one, you're more likely going to go, "Yeah, let's try it."
Like that's again, my friend Eugene does that all the time. He's got like 30 different ideas.
Give us an example. Is there one which we'd understand from a tech perspective?
No, it's just always trying new things. So he's like the last couple of weeks we built this thing called Agent Aura, which is I think it sits on top of an LLM that helps our agents respond to customers in a more empathetic way, which is on brand. So, but we've also taken that idea and we've put that on top of all of our internal kind of documentation, so you can ask it how many days holiday you get, what's the policy for this, so things like that. But he's also doing things like integrating chat into our sales journey without really like talking to anybody.
Yeah.
So if you're on the kind of checkout page for more than 15 minutes now, like Sandy will start talking to you and find out why you haven't booked a holiday, and we're getting like so. But he's got like lots of these different ideas. Like he's thinking about like small language models. He's speaking at different conferences. Like it's just great to work with somebody like that. There's quite like George is the same. My friend David I used to work with, again, somebody who you have to like you just have to like let them go. They've got so many good ideas. They're so much smarter in their domain than I would ever be. It's just getting the best out of them and creating an environment where they'll feel productive.
Yeah. I mean, you sound like a great leader to work for if you are creative. You're not put in a box. You know, you're encouraged to embrace it, bring it to the party and to the table. And
I think they'd think the opposite. I am trying to put them into a box, but I'm just trying to scale the innovation.
Fair enough. This links really neatly with an initiative that I want to hear a little bit more about, which you call HackFest.
Okay. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about HackFest.
So we, as a business, all the way back since I was working at Traffic Broker, we had like days or even weeks now where we sort of down tools on the business side of it and spend anywhere between 1 day to a week just hacking on something new together. So that can be anything from just an idea that you have about, well, it used to be any part of the business or anything you were actually interested in or a new piece of technology. But now we spend a week just trying to, like with the teams around an idea, just come up with new ways of solving it. And we've done really interesting things around like AI from that again. One of the things the team did is to be able to win the HackFest, they created a voice bot that called everybody's mobile number in the building when they were doing their presentation and asked them to vote for them, which was kind of cool. So it's just a kind of 5-day period where, like, based around an idea, teams just naturally form together. We've expanded it out to business teams as well. They kind of help us out, like hack through some stuff, like build something, and like the goal is to show it after 5 days to see how far you've got.
Okay, so you're presenting a business problem at the outset.
Yeah, we've tried to frame a bit more, increasing because we're investing more and more of our time in that. So it's about a week now. So we frame them around business problems. We do it for technology teams where we'll do something a bit more in depth. but we're also doing it for non-technology teams as well. But like around how you can learn AI, we've partnered with Google to help with that as well. They've like taught everybody. So yeah, it's a core part of the business to kind of keep us a bit entrepreneurial, a bit innovative, trying new things in kind of day-to-day jobs.
Yeah, lean into the scrappy, kind of keep some of that mindset.
Yeah, 100%.
Whilst you're
Yeah,
scaling. Really cool. Yeah, such a great thing to do. This was, and I've got to stop quoting your articles, but they're just really good kind of launch pads to some really interesting kind of views that you have. The higher you climb, the more your success depends on effective communication and increasingly written communication. I think you said that was a Jeff Bezos quote. Does that ring a bell?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
What does that mean?
It means to me that the more the senior the position that I've taken in an organization, the more importance communication has been as a part of that, being able to communicate the end state, where you're going, and a lot of that is for me like writing has become a really important way of clarifying like what I'm actually thinking. So I think you don't really know what you're thinking until you've written it down. It's actually the process of writing those ideas down, trying to put them in a coherent way, and then trying to express them back to an organization where you actually understand it yourself and you get feedback about whether you're being kind of clear or not as well. So what I've been doing a lot is, especially at loveholidays, like blogging more, like trying to write those things down. So I understand. We do that not only about, well, I do it for myself, but we do it as an organization. If you go to our tech blog, which is like tech.loveholidays.com, literally hundreds of articles over the last few years from like everybody in the organization about like lots of different things. We really kind of like value taking that innovation that we're doing, articulating the benefit of it, and communicating it more broadly. I think if you do that, you know what you're talking about, and you can get feedback on how people perceive that in your message as well. I mean, it was about 6 months ago, maybe 9 months ago, we had a platform offsite. We took 150 people in the product and tech team off. I gave a presentation around how we're going to evolve the business as a consequence of AI and as a consequence of scaling into more markets. And because we spent some time doing that, I was able to get feedback from the team, which is that I don't understand this thing. You didn't explain to me what the problem was in clear enough terms, which was really helpful. So it was. I'm trying to be as explicit as possible, and I'm getting feedback from the team and being open to that and showing that they're happy to give me a lot of the time on the things that I write. Like, this is where you're wrong. But I found it's really, really useful.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of the book Shoe Dog. I've got a friend that works at Nike, and I said to him, what's the kind of view of Shoe Dog within the business? And he basically said it's a cultural Bible for them.
Oh, right.
It's a rite of passage for everyone to have read it.
Yeah.
Really importantly, but it's such a great description of the formation of Nike, its early stages, how scrappy it needed to be, how it could never have existed, how the name came about, the early iterations and journey to Japan and partnerships that failed, that it gives everybody just a baseline understanding of where the business is, where it's come from, what it stands for, and then everything they're doing today is obviously light years further down the road, but it means that everyone knows the origin story. And it sounds like what you're doing and saying is, there's a really important need to not just stand up every town hall or whatever and just explain why the future is so exciting, but put pen to paper. Because it helps you organize your thoughts, helps other people scrutinize it, and almost forms a bit of a guidebook for, where you're going, the North Star.
Yeah. I'm like the guidebook for where we're going, 100% by looking at the past and saying, like, these are the principles that we've found useful, like the same Shoe Dog example in a nutshell. And it's just, for me, it's a way of also giving back. I've had a lot of help in my career from kind of mentors who've like given me like so much time and so much of their experience. So it's just a different way of me trying to kind of put that back out there somewhere.
You mentioned right at the top that your CEOs of Love Holidays is quite an amazing guy.
Yeah.
Tell us why he's so good. What's it like to work for him?
So I don't know. There's so many good things I could say about him. So I think from a starting point, he gives you a huge amount of autonomy. He holds you to a certain account in that as well. So it's a really difficult job. It's got a group of very opinionated, maybe too polite at times for him, like people who sit on the exec team who are specialists in their areas, and he's trying to coordinate those people together. He does that through giving large amounts of autonomy, but holding you to account. He's got super high standards, which honestly I love working with, from like how you write to how you present, all the way through to your understanding of numbers. He drags the organization up in so many different ways. And he's actually quite inspirational to see how he does those things. When I used to sit with him in board meetings, just to be able to listen to the stories he used to tell about how Love Holidays was changing, was just, oh, this is how you do it. I'd never really seen anybody do that before. The feedback he gets as well from when he does the kind of town halls or the kind of biggest strategy pieces. Yeah, he walks around as he's presenting, picks things out of the audience, and I honestly, he's just such a great person to work for. Really kind of inspirational, but he's kind of old school as well. He's got like loyalty is like really important to him. Like the way that you show up. So on so many different like aspects of it, it's just a great guy to be around.
Yeah, sounds amazing.
And honestly,
sounds great person to work for. We're pretty much at time, unfortunately, because I've got a couple more bits that I wanted to talk about. But let's just quickly get your take on AI as a thinking partner as opposed to a replacement. You've written quite a lot about how you interplay with AI. Just give us your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I use it for so many different parts of my life now, from like choosing what watch to buy, all the way through to Jungian analysis, or even how I write. And I was actually showing my dad this weekend how to use it as more of a thinking partner. So he'd written a thing, and he wanted some feedback on it. I'm like, well, you don't need me to do this anymore. Let me write you a prompt. And so instead of using his ideas to just auto-generate something, it's more of using it as a way to get feedback about what you've written. So I use it as a way of like, I've read these books, or I like these principles, or I like these ways of thinking about it. I'll create a prompt based off of how I know the things I've learned work well. And I'll say, I'm thinking about these things in this way. What's your feedback on it? And I'll ask it generally, give me some feedback. I'll rate it against these principles. Give me some feedback and create me a new version based off of those things. And I'll keep going around in that way. And if that doesn't work, I can also use it just to kind of refactor my thinking as well. So especially with strategy, it's really hard to then summarize these documents in a way that's that fits everybody's needs. But what I'll do is I'll write out my notes. I'll have all of my information, and I can take that and very quickly put it into a different format. So I can put it from I can use the pyramid principle and the SQCA thing, or I can use good strategy, bad strategy. I'll say use it in this way. So you got kind of policy or problem policy approach thing. So, and you can see how your thoughts and your ideas are just translate into different structures, and that's. But the point is that's not the end of it, though. You still then have to put yourself back into it.
Yeah.
And you can, again, much like we were talking about before, you can really tell things that have been written by if you just put your things in and get AI to generate it. You still have to go through it. You're still going to have to like take out the hallucinations, put your own personality back into it, and actually make it a thing. But it just gets you from like 0 to 1 like so much quicker.
Yeah. It's so interesting that thinking partner expression. I think is a great takeaway. You know, it's something to bounce ideas off as opposed to thinking replacement, which ultimately will make us quite a lot stupider in the long run.
Maybe I'm learning more though. So maybe it comes back from when I was a proper engineer doing proper work. We used to do this thing called pair program, where you sit next to somebody. Whilst you were like typing in, the other person was watching what you were typing, and they'd be like, "Have you thought about doing it this way?" And that's exactly how I use kind of AI, which is like, I've thought about this. What do you reckon? It's like, I don't think so. Your logic doesn't make any sense. Oh yeah, thanks. But it's having somebody there like continuously for as long as you want them. And actually, I've just talked about before, like Claude. Like I feel like he's my best friend. Like he's so positive about everything that I do. So I've got this really kind of positive, bubbly dude that's working with me to give me like feedback on. He's always there, ready to give me some feedback on how bad my writing is, so I can continue to try and improve it.
Yeah. No, that's epic. Thank you for that. I wanted to pick that up before we finished. So, final question: if you could pick out either the best or the worst piece of advice you've ever been given, what would you say?
The best piece of advice. I think what I keep coming back to, maybe it's not advice, but the thing that one of my mentors said to me was, like, the thing that really motivates people in these kind of organizations is the ability to leave a footprint. So you should be really setting up your businesses and your teams to be able to say, like, to allow people to leave a footprint, to be able to point back and say over time, like, that's what we did. Like, we created this thing. That's actually super powerful. So you kind of don't realize in the short term how powerful it is, but as your business is scaling, I've been lucky enough to be like 6 years at the HackFest, like 10 years at Uswitch. You can look back at it and be able to say, wow, we did these things. They're actually pretty cool. So yeah, make sure that you're setting up teams and organizations to leave a footprint.
It's an amazing place to leave it, and a great piece of advice. Mike, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. We've covered a lot of ground, but some incredible takeaways, and thoroughly enjoyed it. Lots to brew on. So really appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Behind the SME. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. It really helps others find the show. If you want to get in touch, you can find our email in the description. Until then, keep building, keep learning, and we'll see you next time.